Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the LFC Transfer Room. My name is Louis, and we are back for the first episode of the chat room since the season has ended. How is everybody feeling about that? A wild ride come to a close. Let's try and leave it there, and let's start looking ahead. I'll wait for a few more people to get in and get involved, because of course this is the chat room. This is for the viewers, by the viewers, or by the viewers for the viewers, whichever way you want to look at it. We've got plenty to get through today, plenty of things to discuss. I want to draw attention to this summer, the transfer window coming ahead. At times a pretty quiet affair, especially under FSG and with Jurgen Klopp. Not to say we haven't signed anybody, but there's plenty and plenty of things out there. Jen, how you doing? Yes, purple. You guys didn't like blue, so we've gone for purple because there's only so many colours under the rainbow. We had to pick one that we weren't already using as another background. So purple it is. If you don't like it, I don't know what to say. There's only so many times we can change colours. But as I said, plenty of stuff I want to get through. I want to talk about the evolution, particularly from the previous season to this season just gone, what changes have been made, how that's worked, how that's impacted us, and how I predict that things may go next season, because year upon year there's been tweaks. Yes, we're playing 4-3-3. Yes, our main outlets are the wing-backs. Yes, we play with a false 9. But apart from that, there are subtle tweaks that happen year upon year and result in relatively different outcomes and just give us a new edge year upon year. So mainly I want to focus on the changes this season that we've seen and how that has impacted us in that season. And again, how I think that can change going forward. Great to see so many people getting involved and getting becoming part of this live stream. If you would like to, please leave a like on this video. It really helps us out massively. And if you are new, please do consider subscribing to the channel. Other things that we're going to discuss today, links to a Martin Terrier, Lille striker, 25 years old. Another link as part of this summer. We're going to get a lot of them, and as the LFC Transfer Room, we will cover most, if not all of them. And I'll be giving a little bit of my take, my feedback on the whole scenario with Mane and Mohamed Salah, both with contracts due to run out at the end of next season. And it feels like there's two very big decisions for Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp to make. Jen says we need to start signing people ASAP. Well, as I said, for those of you who are just joining now, this is the chat room. This is for you guys to get involved and really lead the discussion. I've got my topics and we will get through them, but if you've got any questions, any topics you want to bring up, any debates you've been having with a fellow Liverpool fan or football fan, get them in here and we can have a chat about them as well. But let's get into it. Thank you for choosing to watch me, me, for the LFC Transfer Room on a Thursday night. Please do like the video. Please do subscribe. Let's get into it. So let's talk about the evolution. It's a little bit difficult to compare last season with the season just gone, because obviously we had those catastrophic injuries to our centre-backs. But I think if you do go even further back to the season before that, the title-winning season, you can see relatively similar traits. I think the biggest difference with the season where it was Nat and Reece who played us out and got us to top 4 in the end was that there was a huge difference just with how many passes the centre-backs, how involved centre-backs were. We tried to protect them as much as possible, keep them away from the action, but they still did a fantastic job. One of the biggest changes, apart from having our centre-backs fit, was the full integration of Thiago coming in and now being the essential replacement of Jorginho Wijnaldum, who's had a bit of an unfortunate turn in his career, moving to PSG, and now looks like he's going to be out of the picture completely. I think he wasn't even registered for their Champions League knockout stages. I can't quite remember. But it's been a really sad decline. Was that deserved? Some people would argue yes. Some people say that he wasn't fantastic, the way that he handled that whole situation, the way that he wanted to get out. you know, a lot of people thought that he didn't warrant getting a big money move because they didn't either appreciate or see the impact that he had on this Liverpool team. What I would say, though, and what a lot of people did pick up, was that he wasn't particularly progressive for us. I think on his day he was great on the ball, great at keeping the ball. At times he was impossible to get at when he had possession. But in terms of progressiveness, that's something that we did lack from that left-sided role. And it really limited what our already, I think limited is the wrong phrase, but a midfield that is not the absolute focal point of our attacks. The focal points of our attacks are out wide through the wingers, the false nine dropping back and creating confusion, and of course the wing backs in Trent and Andy Robertson. They are the main driving force of our attacks, whereas the midfield is there to almost sweep up necessarily and be that second phase, retain possession, recycle possession, and then of course stop any counter-attacks if we were to lose the ball. But what Thiago has done is given us another outlet in that midfield. We're going to talk about the right side of the pitch for us, because there's that right-sided triangle, which I've mentioned a lot, which does get thrown around a lot, and is a massive, massive thing for how we build attacks, and that is where we've been most threatening. But what Thiago has done is he's not only taken control of that left side of the midfield when we're in possession, dropping back, picking up the ball from the centre-backs, allowing Robertson to push further forward, allowing Mane to cut in a bit more on the left, or Luis Diaz for the second half of the season. Thiago's picked up the ball a lot more often and looked to be a lot more progressive with it. And this has, again, created those beautiful, beautiful diagonals that we've seen, and also alleviated some of the pressure on Fabinho to be that sole deep-lying playmaker. I mean, that was never his role. He's always our lighthouse, our destroyer, but he's been able to alleviate that. They almost play in a 2. We talk about the 4-3-3, and on this channel we've mentioned a lot that the right-sided 3 is more of an attacking midfielder role, specialised, but much more advanced than the other 2. So Thiago and Fabinho essentially sit like this as a 2 at times, especially when we're on possession, driving forward. That allows Thiago time on the ball, Fabinho time on the ball, because they're working in tandem together, and they've got Matip and Van Dijk behind them. So that it gives us a really solid fundamental base to work with. And you just know that at any point Thiago can pick out that reverse ball, pick out that diagonal ball, and just creates that uncertainty that with Wijnaldum we just unfortunately didn't quite have. Now, in terms of wrapping this round to the title of the video, which is, you know, is this our biggest transfer window yet? I think a lot of questions will come around who we sign in midfield, because there's a general understanding that we need another midfielder. We've got a few outgoings. There's reports of Naby Keita maybe going. Maybe he'll sign a new deal. The jury's a bit out on that one. Oxlade-Chamberlain, his career's finished here. Like, there's nothing more for him to do, I don't think. James Milner, a year older, shouldn't be playing consistently for us at this point in his career, but love him to bits. Got an MBE today, which is quite incredible. So we've got 2 midfielders with MBEs in our squad, which must be a record. I don't know. Who else is there? Jordan Henderson getting older again. Maybe we'll start to see him phase out a little bit like James Milner did, but he is still the club captain. Just before I continue on this, thank you to everybody who is joining and getting involved. Lots of activity in the live chat already, and I'll start to have a look through that soon. Please do like this video, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and get any questions you would like me to answer or have a look at into the live chat. Much, much appreciated. So in terms of midfield incomings, there's a few going out, there's a few that shouldn't be considered first team regulars, I'd say. Of course, Curtis Jones is up and coming. Klopp seems to prefer him on that left side. Harvey Elliott's up and coming, prefers to play him in midfield and on the right side. Fabinho, really, his backup is Henderson, and whilst Henderson can do a job there, I don't see him being able to play, you know, multiple games in a row in that position if Fabinho is injured, suspended, whatever. I think Henderson's role really is that right side lane, and I don't think there's too much more he can offer us at that same level. But the market we're in today, I think Jack mentioned it yesterday on Transfer Central. The market for attackers isn't particularly great. I don't think the market for midfielders that are going to make a guaranteed, genuine, instant impact is that great either, unless you're going to absolutely break the bank. You know, Tchouaméni would have answered a lot of problems for us. He could play, he could be a backup for Fabinho, maybe even challenge, who knows. And for me, I think he could play across either of those two number 8s, either on the left or on the right. He could play in that left-sided role, helping out with Fabinho, being that deeper playmaker, or he could play on that right side and help to link up that triangle, which we'll talk about in a second. It looks like that's all but done. It's gone very, very quiet on the Aurelien Tchouaméni side of the internet. He looks Real Madrid bound. We can't match what they're offering. PSG want to get involved. Mbappe wants him in Paris. We can't match what they're willing to pay either. So I think it was a potentially 2-3 horse race with us involved. Now I think it's either he's definitely going to Madrid or PSG are going to sneak in there. I think we're out of it, and I don't think anybody at Liverpool thinks that we're still in it. I think there's probably been not a breakdown, but a complete stoppage in those conversations, in those types of negotiations. Whether we had an agreement with Tchouaméni and we're just waiting to try and crack Monaco, who knows? WD Red says, I'd like to see Jones given a go in the Hendo right-sided 8 role. That's interesting. I mean, Jones is... Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people struggle to understand exactly what kind of a player Curtis Jones is. And I think that's been a big problem with most of our midfield, because as I said, our midfield, whilst this is a very simplistic thing to say, in attack, it's not the focal point. It's not, besides Thiago, primarily how we try to break down teams. We are much more outside to in oriented. We're much more get the ball out wide and try and break things down on the wing, get to the byline, cut it back, that kind of thing. And that's where the majority of our build-up and attack comes from. Whereas the midfield is almost an afterthought in that sense, but of course it still plays a vital role in helping us to contain opposition, in stopping counter-attacks, and occasionally looking to break down low blocks with the likes of Thiago and you know, Fabinho and Henderson can do their own thing. They're not terrible footballers by any means, but I think this has often created a bit of an illusion as to how good our midfielders are, as to the quality of them, and as to how successful a new signing has been. Case in point, Naby Keita. Naby Keita, when we bought him from Leipzig, we thought, wow, we're getting a really tenacious playmaker / goal getter. You know, he's decent goals, decent assists. He's going to be really driving our midfield forward. He's going to be fantastic. He's going to help us to break down these low blocks, etc., etc. But it gets to this Liverpool midfield where it's a lot more regimented. It's a lot more subtle. And so regardless of whether you think we should sell him or keep him or sign a new deal, I think no matter what, he was never going to recreate what we saw at Leipzig versus what he's been able to give us here, because I just think that's the role of a Klopp midfield. And I think that is slightly a poison chalice. It creates like a false illusion of how great a midfielder has been because of the role that he's given. I mean, Fabinho, it's slightly easier. I mean, he's a world-class, one of the best CDMs in the world, of course. But his role is a lot more defined and a lot more easy to judge, isn't it? The way that he scans the back four, the way that he gets those interceptions in, tackles in. It's much more to quantify how good he is as a CDM rather than Naby as a left-sided midfielder, as an 8, where it's not exactly sure what his role is. Whereas with Thiago, he's world class at pinging balls left, right, and centre. So that helps to get know what he's best at. Whereas that's not Naby's strong suit necessarily. But I don't want to get too caught up on Naby Keita. I think. Oh, hello. As I said, the jury's out on him. A lot of people wouldn't be fussed if we sold him. Think it'd be good to get the money whilst we still can and put that towards other people. But in terms of midfield options, and I'll put this out to the live chat and I'll come back to it in a minute. Who do we get? If we I feel like we do need at least one midfield signing this year to refresh it and also replace some of the bodies that should be leaving us or shouldn't be playing as much. So those of you in the live chat, make sure you like the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, but get involved in the live chat and let me know exactly who we should sign in that midfield, because I think it's a terrible market this year. You know, Tchouaméni was the big one, the obvious choice to make a real instant difference for us. But, you know, who do we go for now? There's obviously players out there, but who would you trust to come in and get acquainted with our style of football relatively quickly? I don't think it's a particularly easy task. Let's move on. Let's move on from Thiago and let's have a little chat about that right-sided triangle that I went on about. Again, as part of this evolution that I wanted to discuss. The other part of that was Mane and the number 9 position for us, which Gary, who's in the live chat quite a lot, does talk about. He says we need to get rid of the false 9 and get more of an out-and-out striker. So I think that's an interesting discussion to have. But talking about that right-sided triangle, at the start of the season, it was Trent Alexander-Arnold, Harvey Elliott before his injury, and Mohamed Salah. The vast majority, or over half of our attacking play, would come on that right side, which left a lot of people sort of, you know, not noticing Andy Robertson and Sadio Mane. I think they almost went under the radar a bit because they didn't have as much to do, and Robertson was able to tuck in more, give a bit more defensive solidity, and occasionally, you know, bomb forward and give Mane that overlap. But the majority of play was on the right side, and you'd see Firmino and Mane getting into the box and almost operating as 2 strikers. With the right-sided triangle, you had Henderson acting as support, often stretching the pitch more than Salah would be, but Salah's still relatively wide when not on the ball. Trent coming in, acting as at times an inverted right back, which we've seen a lot, has become increasingly popular in today's football. I mean, we see Pep Guardiola do it a lot. You know, Kyle Walker, Zinchenko, Cancelo at times they play as midfielders, but he would operate in those half spaces on the right hand side. So this is the pitch. You'd have Henderson out here on the right, or in your case on the left from the screen. You'd have Trent cutting in here, and then a bit further and forward, you'd have Salah operating here. It would flip around. It would be relatively fluid, but that's where the majority of our attacks came from in that first half of the season. Of course, Harvey Elliott got that injury, and then as I said, Jordan Henderson comes in and fills in that role. The fact that Harvey Elliott has not played a lot this second half of the season, again, has caused a lot of conversations to be had in terms of is it some sort of problem with his attitude, is it, you know, his antics on social media, or is it just a case of Klopp protecting his young players at the business end of the season, which we've seen a lot. You know, Ben Woodburn, not the best example. Tyler Morton hasn't played since January. Cade Gordon hasn't featured. You know, and that goes back season upon season. We'll get those young players making appearances in the first half, in the league games, League Cup games, and then towards the business end, he'll start to phase them back out just a little bit to try and, I guess, protect them. And I think that's probably a big part of what happened with Harvey Elliott, not to mention coming back from a massive injury that, who knows, could have been career-threatening. But he made his way back, proved his fitness, scored that goal against Cardiff, which was very well taken. And I think a lot of people, myself included, thought, well, hey, he's back straight away. Doesn't look like he's lost a yard, but there's obviously something else there. Now, I'd be very curious to see if at the start of next season, if he is then thrown back into the mix a lot more regularly, if he plays that right-sided 8 role, and if we see another evolution with that. I don't think Klopp would by any means abandon that right-sided triangle. I think it's incredibly useful in terms of confusing the opposition, giving those overloads out wide, and allowing the other wingers, the winger and striker, to get into the box more often and act as a 2. But what we do with that, I'm not 100% sure. Speaking of the striker, Sadio Mane, left winger turned striker at the second half of the season. It was I think we have almost jumped the ship a little bit with Mane, and we've probably exaggerated how good he's been. I think he's been a lot better than he was at left wing in the first half, and his numbers have been brilliant. Comparatively speaking, across the rest of the league, he's still been brilliant, one of our top performers. I don't know. I just feel like compared to the very best of what we've seen of him, he still feels a long way off that. But as I said, he's made changes, played in the centre forward role, and it's been very different. Jota and Firmino, although Firmino at his prime did it a lot better and has been much more influential in his time, Jota and Firmino both liked to drop deep, collect the ball, become a part of that become that fourth midfielder essentially, and help to build up play in that way. Whereas Mane, when we're on possession, he's looking to make as many runs in behind as possible to either receive the ball or, lure a centre-back out of position, whatever. But his mind is always on getting to goal the quickest. That's his priority. So in this second half of the season, we've lost that complete false nine sense. And this is what I mean when we talk about Salah's form, when we, it's more than just Salah is now playing badly. Maybe he is. Maybe he is just off it a little bit, even though his numbers, apart from goals and assists, have still been incredible. We've had a new striker who doesn't play the way that we started the season with, the way that Salah got his figures. We've got Luis Diaz coming in on the left, who doesn't operate the same way that Mane did on the left. He's much more of a dribbler, takes on players, stays wider for the majority of the time. That's had an effect. And that may be a reason as to why we weren't able to get goals in 3 finals. But again, I'm not complaining about that. Once again, just want to draw attention to the live chat and people watching. Thank you very, very much for joining and getting involved in the chat room. This will be, especially now the season's over, this will be a weekly stream, so do stick around. Matt Say What You See says, how are you? I'm very good, hope you're doing well. Is it true that Jude could be got for 80 million this summer? I mean, Dortmund have sold Haaland. They've got a pretty strict model, buy someone for cheap, build them up to be a massive player, and then sell them on for massive profit. Would they do 2 in 1 season? I don't know. There's reports coming out that maybe they would. I struggle to see it. I think if we're going to get him, which still isn't confirmed at all, it would be next year. Next year would be the potential year. I think even for his development, maybe just another year out of the massive limelight of the Premier League at a club like Dortmund, who are renowned for developing youth, I think might be the trick to get him ready for a team like us if he decides to come there. A lot of people talking about Martin Terrier. We will discuss Martin Terrier shortly. There's just a couple more things I do want to get out there, and any more questions, please do get them into the live chat. Make sure you like the video and make sure that you do subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And you can also join our Discord. The link for that is in the video description below. So continuing with that conversation about Mane, it now feels like we've moved away, either by choice or by necessity, from an out-and-out false nine. In terms of evolution, in terms of this summer, in terms of what player we bring in, do we abandon the false nine altogether? Do we just say, do you know what, Firmino was fantastic at it, that front three in their prime were electric, the way that whole dynamic worked. We're not going to find someone as good as Firmino in his prime. Klopp has continuously said you should write a book about Firmino and how he interpreted that number 9 role. That means to him there's not many players who could do that. So really, if you can't find someone who's as good, if not better, then maybe it's time to move away from it, which I think a lot of people in the fan base would prefer. Doesn't mean it's the right decision, but I think a lot of people are just quite desperate to see an out-and-out goal scorer up front rather than Salah on the wing, who's won 4 golden boots. We're selfish that way. And of course, with Man City signing Erling Haaland, it just feels like if we're going to be in with a chance next year, we need another attacker. We need an out-and-out striker. That's where there's another debate. Do we get a winger or do we get an attacker? Mane looks out of Salah and Mane looks the most likely to go this year. It's believed Salah, he's happy to stay another year and go on a free. And if we're happy to do that, which I think would be a weird decision, but I'd understand, because how can you sell 2 of your best players in the same window? It just doesn't feel realistic in terms of getting in suitable replacements in the same window. One, people are going to know that we're minted from the money we get for them. 2, people are going to drive up their prices crazy because they know that we're looking to sign replacements for them. Adam says striker for sure. Yeah, I mean, I said it's a debate. I think a lot of people know that we need a striker. Luis Diaz has come in and shows that he can play on that left wing. Jota can be a decent deputy either at centre forward or on the left wing as well. Salah can play right wing, and Firmino, it looks like we'll keep him. He can play up front as well. So, a striker or someone who could ideally play across the front 3 would be pretty sweet, in my opinion. WD Red says, is Terrier the French forward we've been linked with? I hope not. It is, unfortunately. We'll get on to that in a minute. Salah's goal scoring in the last few weeks of the season was disappointing. Yes, it was. I wouldn't take a winger. We have Diaz and Salah, and that's why I wouldn't sign Son. I'd rather go for a number 9. Maybe we need that killer. Adam says Núñez, and that's someone we've been linked with a lot. How likely, again, that is... It just feels so early in the transfer window, but at the same time, it does just feel like, who are we going to sign? Who are we realistically linked with that we would realistically put a bid in for and realistically sign? Núñez is heavily favoured for Man United if he goes anywhere. João Felix, he went to Madrid for 120 million a few years ago. Hasn't quite worked out the way he'd like, but would they take that much of a loss? Because we're not going to spend 70 million on João Felix. I highly doubt it. I feel like we'd go as high as 50, 60 million and tell them to F off if they ask for any more. So how likely that is, as much as I think he may be a brilliant answer, as he could play as a false 9, or he could be more of an out and out. I don't know. Hyla, good to see you. Don Pablo says Moussa Diaby is a better shout than Terrier, honestly. And Mutt Say What You See says, would you take Sane? I'll take Gnabry. Sane, I haven't really kept track of how well he's doing. If someone's got some statistics for me on that one, I can have a look into it. But I don't think, I think if we were going to get anyone from that Munich team, I'd probably go for, if not Lewandowski. I forgot Lewandowski is a potential option, but I don't know. Would he cut it in the Prem at his age? I don't know. Age is just a number, but realistically, how well could he do it at his age? I don't know. I think whilst he is fantastic, whilst he deserved that Ballon d'Or that he was robbed of during COVID, it goes for a lot of that Munich team is that they are the German PSG. The league they're playing in, their closest rivals, Dortmund, are dreadful. They were abysmal every time I watched them, and again they fell way off. They got nowhere near Munich. It was a piss walk to the title. They thrashed, or was it Salzburg in the round of 16, and everyone thought, oh my god, they're favourites. RAF lost, kicked out by Villarreal, who we, apart from the first half and the second leg, duly dispatched with relative ease. I don't think, I just don't think it would be a guaranteed success, Lewandowski. I think he would get plenty of goals, but would he take us to that next level? That's the question you've got to ask yourselves. I'm sure a lot of people are probably getting angry by what I just said there, but ask yourselves, would he take us to that next level? Would he be a Haaland for us? Would he give us more goals than we had? Would he replace Salah's goals? I'm not 100% sure. I'm not 100% sure. But again, you can't guarantee that for any player, can you? Let's just discuss shortly the Mane and Salah debacle, which feels like it could go on for long portions of this transfer window. Before we do that, everybody who's watching, thank you for joining me on the chat room this Thursday night. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. It really helps us out. Tick that bell notification. We go live pretty much every night, and we've got videos throughout the day as well. It's going to be a long pre-season until the new season kicks off. So to get all your Liverpool content, all your news, all your fixes, make sure you subscribe to the LFC Transfer Room. We've got everything. We've got everything for you. And we'll have, I was going to say exclusive then, we'll have massive coverage of all the pre-season and all the games, as well as transfer talk as well. Mutt Say What You See says, I'm on the Bowen train, hope we get him. That would be incredible. Ivan Toney, no, thank you. I mean, just his attitude, the way he's handled him. How do you get caught out twice on social media saying something crap about your football team? How the hell can you be that thick to get done twice for saying something about your club? What was it? Did he say we're rubbish? I mean, maybe he was joking, but it just didn't look very good, did it? And then it happened again. Like, how stupid do you have to be? Whether he would be a success, again, up in the air. I think Bowen's been a lot more reliable this year. His numbers have been incredible for a team like West Ham, and I think there was a lot of sarcasm around him maybe halfway through the season, but as things went on, his performance against Man City, his performances in the Europa League in the back end of the season as well, he's put up some impressive numbers. There's nothing really concrete around it yet. Maybe last season there was, but now there's nothing concrete. But I would happily take him. I'd happily take him. Adam says, let's just sign everyone. Well, according to the papers, that is what will be happening over the next few weeks. We will be close to signing bloody everyone. We'll be putting bids in left, right and centre. The reality is Julian Ward will be sitting there on his, cappuccino at Kirkby training ground, very chilled out, waiting for the right deal to present itself. But yes, let's talk about Mane and Salah. Something that's just going to rage on throughout this transfer window, throughout this pre-season. As I said, can we afford to sell both of them? I think Mane is pretty much sorted. The deal isn't done, but I feel like there's a general consensus within the club. Klopp has sanctioned it. Mane wants to go. There's obvious interest from Munich. He'll be going at some point. Maybe not immediately, but at some point down the line, he will be going in this summer. I think there's a relative sense of goodwill around that, from me especially. I think he's won everything he can. He's dealt with it very quietly and to himself, and he's just said, behind closed doors anyway, I've done what I needed to do, and I'd like to move away. If it's money motivated, fine, whatever. The figures we're talking about are insane, so I mean, I wouldn't say no. I don't think any of you would if you were honest about it. Mo, on the other hand, as Andy Man says, has alienated himself a little bit. The consistent shite coming out of his agent's mouth on Twitter just wasn't helpful to anything or anyone. Some of the things he's come out and said as well just played on our emotions a little bit, played on our sympathies for him, played on our love for him. We welcomed him with open arms. He's been a fantastic success. And spoke all that shite in the build-up to the Champions League final as well. I mean, calling himself the best player in the world. If he'd have done that back in December, we would all agree 100%, and we'd say, yep, fair enough, he knows what he's on about. The second half of the season, we all know what happened. We all know that for whatever reason, and I don't want to simplify it, but for whatever reason, and it's definitely multifaceted, something went wrong. Something went wrong, and he was not the same player with the same level of output as the first half, even though he managed to keep hold of that golden boot just by the skin of his teeth, I would suggest. Excuse me. There's not much he can do now, I don't think, to really rectify the loss of trust that he would have generated from Liverpool fans. I think within the club he's probably fine. Klopp probably still gets on with Klopp as much as he ever did, which I don't think was the greatest ever relationship, but they get on with in a professional sense. But generally speaking, even if he were to sign a new deal, which I think is probably the least likely thing to happen now at this point, I don't think he would be able to earn that trust back unless he went on and had an even better season than he's ever done before, which would take some doing. The most likely things to happen now is that he either gets sold, or the most likely thing, which I think is he stays one more year, plays out his contract, and gets let go for free, which I think sucks for us. And that's where I'm a bit conflicted, because I don't want him to go for free. I want us to get compensated somehow for him so that we can, afford a replacement, a suitable replacement. But then do you sell Mane and Salah in the same window? And how bombastic does that sound from like a year or two ago? When would we ever be talking about this? To sell both of them in the same window would be completely and utterly saying goodbye to that first Klopp phase, doesn't it? And that again brings us back to this this is such a massive transfer window. This is such a big part of our next evolution, our move into phase 2 or phase 3, however you want to think about it. We're going to be saying goodbye to a lot of people who got us to where we are, and I mean really were big parts of it in the next year or two. You know, Milner getting old, Henderson getting old, fading away from regular first team football, Oxlade-Chamberlain leaving, Keita probably leaving, and then Mane and Salah probably leaving. Firmino, who knows? It's pretty quiet on that front. I imagine he stays for a bit longer, but in what role, I don't know. We just can't seem to find any consistency at the moment. Jen says, remember, we made the player, not the other way around. Exactly. I think Charlie mentioned that on the Transfer Central yesterday. In terms of a contract, or in terms of how much he's got to hold over us in terms of leaving for free, there's not much. There's not many cards that he's got at this point, is there? He's had a terrible second half of the season, and ultimately, without us, would he be where he is? That's not saying he's completely indebted to us or Klopp or the fans. I think that's a ridiculous sentiment to take. But, you know, we made it. We've made others. I think's my biggest point. We've made others as well, and Klopp and Salah will not be the last of those. So that there's plenty more fish in the sea. It is kind of the main point from that. Alan says, if we need funds to buy players, then surely we have to sell first to the aging players. Well, exactly. That's what I'm kind of alluding to, Alan. Capone76 says Mane improved when Diaz came in, albeit a different role. Mo needs pressure on him. Needs sign a right-footed left winger. Saka, Bowen, Raf, Tete, Anthony needs to get one in. Potentially, a lot of people think Diaz was probably the actual replacement for Mane. Would you sign a player just to put pressure on Mo Salah? Would any of those players want to come in and be second fiddle? Because I get your point. You're probably right. I'm just thinking, well, what if they come in? What if they come in and then Mo Salah plays fantastically again? He becomes undroppable. He won't want to miss even a Carabao Cup game. So what do you do with the player you've just signed? They've come in and fulfilled their purpose, which for you was to put pressure on Salah and make him perform. And you know, Salah's not going to fill in a different role, is he? He's not going to play on the left. He's not going to play as a striker. I just don't see that. So I don't know. It's a bit of a confusing one, but an interesting debate in terms of, do we sell one or do we sell both? Do we let Salah go for free next year, or do we try to get money in now? It's a very, very interesting point that definitely needs saying. I mean, you talk about rotation. Klopp by and large doesn't like rotation. He really doesn't. That's why Tsimikas has got sod all football this year despite being really good. It's why Firmino's got sod all football this year. It's why since Diaz came in, Jota's got sod all football apart from a handful of substitute appearances. It's why Minamino, apart from being our Carabao Cup and FA Cup top goal scorer in the competition, got sod all Premier League appearances and sod all Champions League appearances this year. He knows when to rotate. Suddenly out of nowhere, we'll get a game where he rests 5, 6, 7 players, or in like the early rounds of the FA Cup. But by and large, he doesn't like to rotate from game to game. It's one or two. It's, you know, Henderson and Keita constantly swapping out, whereas Fabinho and Thiago stayed where they were. The front three picks itself. The back four picks itself. I genuinely think that Klopp likes that consistency. He likes building rhythm in players. So it's difficult. It's difficult for a new signing to come in unless, you know, I think Diaz is an outlier, because we saw with Robertson when he first came in, wasn't first choice. Fabinho had to work his way into the side, even though he came on a massive fee. I don't know, and you can take that two ways. WD Red says that's why we ran out of legs at the end of the season. Maybe you could argue that. Maybe you could. I think ultimately in the Champions League final, we had the chances. If we'd have taken them, we would have won, and we wouldn't be saying that. I don't think we didn't create anything. We had a ridiculous amount of shots, a ridiculous amount of shots on target, just couldn't find the back of the net, and that was our main problem, and that's why there's a lot of talk about a striker. Speaking of strikers, we can now move on to my final point, and then we'll have a look at the comments and see if there's anything in there that people wanted to discuss other than what I've said. But before that, make sure you like this video if you haven't done so already, and please do subscribe to the channel. It really, really helps us out, and we're hot on the road to 5,000 subscribers. I think we could get there in a month or two, so you could be a big part of that and help us on our road to that. And we're also the best place to be for all of your Liverpool content in this off-season, in this pre-season when it gets back underway. We'll have lots of coverage of pre-season games, transfer news, and everything. And we stream daily. We have videos out twice daily. So plenty of content to keep you occupied between now and the start of the season with the Carabao Cup, the Community Shield fixtures, which has just been announced at the end of July. I can't remember the exact date, but we'll be there for that one as well. So let's just finish up a little bit on a potential new link, which we're going to see lots of, as I said, this time with a striker, someone we have identified, Martin Terrier, currently a striker for, I haven't written it down, is it Lille? Whoops. Plays for Lille, has played for Lyon in the past. In 160 league, he plays in Ligue 1, obviously. 160 appearances in the league. He's scored 40 goals at teams like Lille. So, we're not talking about PSG. We're talking about a Lille that have to actually work and fight for their results. In terms of the profile, I think this is the biggest thing when we look at potential signings. That it's a case of, does he fit the profile, the profile that we've built ourselves, which is relatively easy to track. We can look at Jota coming in, we can look at Diaz coming in, Salah's transfer, Mane's transfer, the numbers that they put up at their respective clubs. Does it fit in line with the kind of profile that fits us, that we know Klopp can develop, take to the next level? Klopp and the coaching team obviously take to that next level and get the very best out of them. So if we have a look at a couple of key stats in this regards to attackers, we look first of all at expected goals. If you don't know what expected goals are, Google is free, but sorry to be rude. Expected goals is essentially how many goals they are expected to get per 90 from the shots, from the positions they get themselves into. The better the quality of the shot, or the better the chance, the higher XG that they've got. So if they're taking a shot from 50 yards out, the expected goal from that is going to be terrible. If they're 6 yards out of an open goal, the XG is going to be through the roof, very high. So Liverpool's consistent sort of tipping point on whether they're interested or not in a player tends to be around 0.35 expected goals per game. Martin Terrier, 25 years old, has an expected goals of 0.44. So straight away, he ticks that box. In terms of shots per 90, so we're looking for somebody who is active in the attack. We see that with Mane, we see that with Diaz, we see that with Salah. They take a relatively high number of shots, and they're in and around the box. They take a lot of touches inside the box, which is a high pressure situation. So do they have the ability to do that? Do they have the coolness of mind, the positional awareness to play in and around the box and get their shots away? For Liverpool, again, the tipping point, the sweet spot tends to be around 2.5 shots per 90. Martin Terrier hitting about 2.75 shots per 90. So again, I saw a lot of people, some people in the comments weren't too keen on Martin Terrier. I'm not going to tell you that I've watched every minute of every game he's ever played. But for me, he automatically fits into that profile, the money ball principle, the kind of player Julian Ward and his scouting network will have looked into for sure, I have no doubt. And, playing at the team that he does in the French league, there's probably a decent deal to be had there as well. So who knows? Maybe that is somebody that we could genuinely look for, as opposed to a Bowen, because I would love to get Jared Bowen, but he's going to cost an astronomical fee. Are West Ham going to lose Declan Rice this year? I think they're pretty happy to try and wait it out and wait till next year and see what happens and hold firm on any bids that come in this year. But it's similar to Dortmund, isn't it? Would they be willing to let two of arguably their best players go within such a short space of time? Bowen will have that English tax. He's already in the Premier League. He's had a decent season. The fee for him would be astronomical. Would be pretty high. But would he be worth it? I'm sure he would. Jen says Bowen would be a better option. Terrier has been poor this season. I know. Salah had some poor seasons before we brought him. There's always going to be ups and downs, isn't there? Messi can have a bad season. Doesn't mean that he's not great. In terms of transfer figures, do you know what? Let me just have a quick looky. Let me have a quick look and see what I can find in terms of touted fees. Just bear with me a moment. Because I think this is an incredibly early stage, so I don't think there would have been many, if any, conversations. And whether there's any fees even being thrown about at this point, I'm not 100% sure. Let me just see. I mean, his previous moves, which was only a year or two ago, he moved to Lille from Rennes, I think, for about 10 million or 12 million euros. So, I don't know. What if we get Dembele and move Salah as a striker? Dembele, so the one from Barcelona, potential free transfer. I think Chelsea, well, most people would be interested in Dembele on a free transfer, despite his injury problems. I'd have to look more into that one. At the moment, there's just no real rumours like putting us anywhere near interested in him, unfortunately. Matt Sewisi says, I trust recruitment team. I'm sure Ward and Klopp will sign someone else that we never thought of. Fabinho and Jota, case and point. I think that's what this summer's going to be. I think it is massive. The biggest in our history, probably not. I think it's probably just been escalated by the fact that we were so close to the Champions League, so close to the league, and Man City have now signed Haaland. There's just, again, a growing expectation that Man City are going to once again pull away. Even though there is a limited amount of points you can get in a Premier League season, and we've come very close to that. So realistically, they can only get so many points. You know what I mean? It's not they can't infinitively get better and better. But I understand what people mean. They've got that out-and-out striker now to add on to an already brilliantly effective attacking unit that can counter-attack fantastically, that can break down a low block way better than we can on a consistent basis. Mike says, well, we have Carvalho. Yes, yep, the forgotten man. And, you know, he can fit in parts of that midfield and part of the front three as well. What's the latest on the Ramsey guy, the young right back? I think it's still as much as we've known for a while. We're very interested, probably close to agreeing something. May depend on Nico Williams, what happens with him. Will he want to stay and fight again? Would he want to be that backup? Because he's not going to ever win the spot. How much do we get for him? Do we sell him? I think that's probably a big part of confirming the... I imagine a lot of the Ramsey deal is probably done and just needs a signature and to get over the line. But it might depend on some outgoings and one or two other bits as well. But of course, we'll have much more transfer news as the window unfolds. We will, of course, have another Transfer Central for you on Thursday. But between now and then, we'll have more content as well to get you over this bank holiday and lack of Liverpool football, which just feels so weird after so many months of 3 games a week. We've now got none for, you know, a good month and a half until pre-season gets back underway. So this is your place to be until then and during next season. So please do like this video. Please do subscribe to the LFC Transfer Room and turn on the bell notification as well for updates on whenever we go live or post a video. Thank you very much for joining me, everybody. It's been a great show, much fun, lots of interaction, which is great to see. Happy to see so many people in the live chat and watching as well. I've been Louis. Thank you for watching the LFC Transfer Room and the chat room. I'll see you at some point in the future on another stream, and the chat room will be back next week. I would like to say same time, same day next week, but that's probably not true. It might be on a different day, but the point still stands. Thank you very much for joining me, everyone. Take care and have a lovely bank holiday, and we'll see you on the next